Welcome everyone to Figuring Out the Formula One podcast here by three beginners in the sport. We'll be discussing a whole bunch of ins and outs of Formula One from a beginner's perspective. My name's Kyle, and I've been into Formula One for about 2-3 years now, thanks to Drive to Survive on Netflix.
My name's Chandler. Similar situation. Been in Formula One this is about the third season. Go McLaren.
I'm Patrick. I've been watching F1 since 2020. I also got into it because Drive to Survive. And then after that, watched a couple of races, started digging into technical aspects and, all the stuff that happens off the track as well. And then from then on, I was pretty much hooked.
Yeah, I feel like we all were. I mean, as soon as we saw that show, it was over. We were hooked. I mean, like I watched NASCAR and dirt racing and IndyCar all my life, and I never woke up early on Sunday morning to watch that. Or stay up really, really late to watch, like Formula One has me doing. So, I didn't watch it because I only saw NASCAR on TV, and I thought it was just going in circles like that as well. Mm-hmm. And very quickly found out that it is not. No, it's like the rich people's NASCAR. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's catered to the casual viewer. We are done in 2 hours.
No commercials.
There's no commercials. We could get into the semantics of some of the broadcast flaws, but at least we are watching live racing the whole time.
Yeah.
And it just makes it's easier to watch. I mean, just other than the time being the only kind of constraint of like, you might have to get up super early or stay up late, but it's a very easy on the eyes.
Yeah. The three of us, we went to our first race together in Austin for the US Grand Prix in 2022. You guys went to a couple different races before that, but that was my first race. And I was pretty spoiled. We were where Danny Rick started on the front row. So the only better seat is either in the car or in the paddock. And I think that's next,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's mostly downhill from here. But
that's the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, you gotta get in as many as you can.
Like I said, I'm Kyle. That's Chandler and Patrick. We're just three buddies talking Formula One, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. There's so many things where when we first started, we had no idea what the heck was going on, like DRS, liveries, the purple versus gold or green during qualifying. It's crazy. I don't understand, or I didn't understand half of that stuff. So hopefully we can cover a lot of that stuff and help explain it to you guys. So figuring out the formula, this podcast is going to be in the form of a race weekend. So we'll have qualifying, we'll have practice, and we'll have the race. Each section is going to cover a different part of the race weekend or week leading up to it. New podcasts will be released on Tuesday or Wednesdays of every week after a race. What we're going to talk about first is the learning curves for newer fans. So I covered a few of those. I need each of you to describe one or two things that you struggle with when you first started watching.
I guess that for me really was the people of the sport, not really knowing what when we come to motorsport racing. I know NASCAR pretty limited. I'm not going to say I'm an expert. I'm not going to say I know nothing about it, but you talk about for example, in NASCAR, you got crew chiefs. Well, I didn't know about the difference between race engineers and team principals and kind of those personalities of the sport, if you will, kind of going into it. And then also similar in the way of teammates is slightly different in the world of F1 than it is on NASCAR, just because there's more of an emphasis on a team championship or constructors championship in F1 than there is in NASCAR. So it's kind of learning how there is that battle of working together, but also at the same time, the last person that you want to get beat by is your teammate. So trying to kind of learning that kind of aspect of it was really kind of interesting and a new concept.
Yeah, I think for NASCAR, normally most teams either have a teammate, there's 2 or 4 cars. Normally, those are the big teams have 4 cars. and there is a owners championship, but you don't hear about it. When a winner in NASCAR wins, his constructor isn't doing anything special. Like in F1, they have the winning constructor up on the podium, the fourth podium. That's not a thing in NASCAR. So when I saw that, I was like, who is that guy and why is he up there? He's definitely not a driver.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, it's different from honestly every other team sport there is out there. Just because it's, this other guy with me, he's my teammate, and, we hope that one of our cars win, but I need my car to be in front, and it's, it's so cutthroat that it's honestly kind of sometimes like they're not actually your teammate. And, that was a big thing for me, just kind of understanding that at first. And then, the other main thing for me was just kind of understanding the jargon and what people are talking about. When you start to hear people say things like DRS or, overtaking, overcut, undercut, stuff like that, it's really hard to piece together when you've quite literally never heard it before.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me, honestly, was, Drive to Survive did help with a lot of that. And then honestly, just watching the races. Honestly, Martin Brundle, one of the main commentators, actually explains a lot of stuff really well for new viewers. And he's really good at breaking things down. And that actually helped me a ton.
It's grown so popular because of Drive to Survive that their viewership is insane right now. So they have to dumb it down for people because the majority of their viewers, especially in the US, this could have been their first season, or last season was probably their first season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's super challenging now that we understand what's going on and we watch every weekend what's going on. We understand it's dramatized a lot, but I think it does a great job. I mean, look at the three of us. It got the three of us into the sport. So, and we're still and I can't wait for this week when the new season comes out. So,
and I guess it's even more fun is like, since we watched all last season, like week to week, we know what's going on. It's just going to be like, I'm excited to see how Netflix portrays it. Like, because we know what happens. It's not like it's a surprise or there's no cliffhangers. Like, we know what the end result is. It's just how they portraying it in ways that we didn't see during the actual season.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, watching it, in a subsequent season after, you watch it for the first time and, you start to understand stuff, and then you watch races, and then going back and watching it is just a totally, totally different experience. And, that's part of something that Netflix tries to tackle, because, you still have to keep people engaged with, the basics and helping new viewers understand it. But at the same time, you've got a lot of people that watch F1 already that are also watching this.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So my next question is so last season was a runaway for the top spot. Max Verstappen is now a 2-time world champion. He was untouchable. Even by his own teammate, he was untouchable. So there was a huge battle for second and third place. Was there anything that stuck out to you guys about last season? Winners, losers, strategies, that kind of thing?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that, it started even before the season was when people started with rumors that the 2022 Mercedes car was just going to be a rocket ship. Everyone was talking about no side pods. Side pods, for those of you that don't know, it's the basically big areas on the actual side of the car that take in air to cool the engine. And people were freaking out because, Mercedes has this car that looks like a pencil. And everybody's ready for them to just blow everyone away like they've done for, the past, 7 years before that, 6 years before that.
What do you mean? What do you mean blow them all away?
Just dominating the Constructors' Championship. I mean, I remember even a couple of years ago, they were winning races by a full minute.
Mercedes, for everyone listening, especially Americans, Mercedes is what, the Chiefs, what the Patriots did, what, these big football teams do, where they win every year. And if they don't win the Super Bowl, it's a failure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
dynasty. That's the way to describe
dynasty,
it.
Yeah. It's the equivalent of that.
And I mean, they were a dynasty for, the whole beginning of the turbo hybrid era, which started in 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
And, they were dominating every single year. And then it comes last year and everyone thinks they're just going to do it again. And they, they struggled. And, even Toto Wolff, who, he's a guy that just loves to crush it. He's their team principal. And, everyone knows he knows how to run the show. And they struggled all year. They only won one race. Lewis Hamilton didn't even win a race. And he'd set a record for winning the most races, I think, or tied it.
Yeah, it was like his first year winless in quite some time, which is crazy because most people never win a race in any race, any form of motorsports. Most people never win a race.
Yeah,
so
it's
to have a big deal of not winning a race once in a season.
It was like I saw a statistic, and I don't know if this counted last year or not, but it was like Red Bull since 2010 had 101 wins, and Lewis Hamilton himself had 103 wins. And like I said, I don't know if that counted last year or not from the Red Bull statistics. I don't know. That may have if it was this off season.
Because Max had 200 wins last season alone.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But it was like, I think Lewis Hamilton's had more poles. He's had more wins than Red Bull combined. He's had obviously more drivers' championships than all three of the Red Bull drivers.
That's crazy.
That have won, or I say all three. It's just been, Max and Sebastian, but am I missing anybody from that early 2010s Red Bull era?
It's like Max, Seb, David Coulthard. I don't think they count a Coulthard or anything, but I think since 2010 was Seb. So, I mean, you're looking at, it's just a dynasty. And that, like I said, you're right. I remember even in the first race of last year in like free practice when Mercedes was, I wouldn't say they were at the bottom, but they were like middle of the pack. And everybody said was like, oh, that's fine. They're just sandbagging it. Wait till qualifying. Wait till qualifying. And then qualifying rolls around in the middle of the pack. Oh, they're sandbagging. They're going to come out hot in the race. And then
getting away from Mercedes a little bit so we don't piss off half the.
Yeah.
What about the American team? The only American team, Haas. It's owned by Gene Haas. He also owns Stuart Haas for NASCAR. They were terrible. They weren't even close.
Well, really, the thing that I noticed about them was that they started off all right. Like we were like, okay, this is a pretty good improvement. But like all the other teams, because Haas does not put any money into their team, they didn't have but one upgrade. And to be honest, the upgrade took them backwards, in my opinion.
Are you talking about Gunther?
No, I'm talking about the package upgrade. They get I think that they were they waited as long as they could to put the upgrade on the car, and it was till Hungary. They put the upgrade on, and then they were even slower than they were before. So everybody else not only caught up to them, but passed them. Everybody that was behind them. It's kind of sad because, they are the American owned team that is, America's probably undebatably the fastest, the largest growing part of the audience, if by country is percentage wise, the massive amount of growth. And it's almost like Haas didn't really care.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us are kind of, at least me, I don't know about y'all. I'm still waiting for them to just embrace, that Americans, will watch F1. You're based in America,
Yeah.
I was waiting forever for them to just release a t-shirt so I could buy it.
Yeah.
And what they're doing by what they're wasting by not doing that is the fact that now we have Logan Sargent coming in the Williams car, and Williams has started to embrace that. Logan and Williams have started to embrace, hey, we have an American on our team. And so it's pulling the people away that are on the Americans that might be new. They're going to say, even though you have an American team, but you don't know they're from America, if you didn't really do a deep dive, you hey, there's an American driver. I'm going to go pull for him and Williams.
There's the front markers, the midfield, and the back markers. So Formula One is a huge difference between the front and the back. There's only 20 cars, 2 per team. Well, normally the fights happen between the midfield and the back markers. Well, this year, I think that could be changing. I think it's going to be a lot closer, between the front and midfield than it is the midfield and the back markers. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I definitely think that it's going to be a much bigger mix up this year. The thing about last year was that because it's so many, there were a bunch of new regulations that came in last year for, aero engine, everything. And, when you get that, you're either getting it right or you're getting it wrong. And from the looks of it, Red Bull got it right. Ferrari got it right. Mostly Mercedes kind of got it right. And then everyone else just was struggling. At least from my perspective, it felt like it was Red Bull and Ferrari at the front. Then you had Mercedes, and then it's a guess as to where everyone else was going to end up.
Yeah, that's when you start getting into the midfield. It's like, well, just one giant ass question mark is who the fuck knows what's going to happen?
Because I mean, even at the start of the season, Alfa Romeo came out swinging in Bahrain. Yeah. And, then you had Red Bull, who both their cars died, and everybody was just blown away and was like, okay, Red Bull's going to have a struggle season again. This is 2017, 2018 all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And, Red Bull figured it out. And then you saw a lot of those teams that started off really hot just start to go straight backwards.
Yeah. And like Mercedes was, pretty much we can just say what it is. Mercedes was known for, they weren't the fastest, but did we ever see them have a mechanical retirement this season? I don't know if we did. I mean, there may have been some wrecks that they've been involved in, but they were consistent. You could rely on that car. It was going to put where you have drivers like Lewis Hamilton and then even George Russell, who, George will get better and grow into it more, but he's got a lot of raw talent. The two of them, you get them in that car, you're going to drive into like a podium finish. I mean, so that's the thing that killed Ferrari.
When you've been winning and winning and winning.
Exactly. That's not going to cut it.
Third place is not it. Your fans, your crew members, all that, it's not going to cut it. I don't know. Any crazy moves to happen between last season and this season?
I mean, the biggest one is definitely Daniel Ricciardo being out to me. He started off at Red Bull in the old Toro Rosso, which is now called AlphaTauri. Worked his way up, won his first race in Canada. I want to say it was 2016 or 17. And, he looked like he was the next big thing. And then Max Verstappen comes along, they start butting heads. Daniel Ricciardo eventually decided, he wanted to try something else. It wasn't working for him at Red Bull. He wanted to try something else, switched to Renault, now Alpine. That was going good. And then he thought, he finally found the golden goose when he switched to McLaren for 2 seasons. And his first season was okay. A lot of people thought that, he was just having issues gelling with the car. They couldn't quite get it right to his style. And then, last season, he was just nowhere to be found at all. I think McLaren had one podium at Imola. That was Lando Norris. And other than that, they really struggled, which I think also surprised a lot of people.
During his tenure at McLaren, Danny Rick was the only McLaren driver within the last decade to get a win. He got it.
Yeah, 1-2 at Monza. That was special.
So think about this, how much of a difference he made for that organization. He got the CEO of McLaren Racing to get a tattoo because he won a race. Yeah, I don't see Toto doing that.
No.
So, for him to be gone like that it's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, he's still in F1. Currently, he's the Red Bull reserve driver. But he was also one of the reasons that Drive to Survive even got started. Because he was one of the drivers that loved interacting with fans, loved cracking jokes all the time, wasn't always like, this is just crazy serious 110% of the time. And honestly, without him, a lot of us would not be watching F1. I mean, he was part of the reason I kept watching Drive to Survive.
He's a honey badger.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a big thing that he's not there because he got replaced by Oscar Piastri. Of which I don't know, what are you guys from, McLaren standpoint thinking that, he's going to be able to pull out of the bag?
So my take on like McLaren was that I was jokingly said that, that the reason I was a McLaren fan was like, you come for Danny Rick, you stay for Lando Norris. Like that's what drew me into McLaren. And then you realize, okay, well, Lando is a heck of a driver and is also a good personality too. So that's kind of like Lando's like become my favorite driver of the two of them. Oscar, I think, is going to be good. I feel like there's definitely going to be some growing pains, learning curve for him to step in because, Zach Brown and McLaren, they're trying to build the car around Lando. I do think that Oscar's closer compatible to that than Danny Rick was. Kyle's shaking his head. So Lando's still the clear cut one driver. Yeah. Oscar, I don't think it's unrealistic to say that Oscar is going to double the amount of points that Danny Rick got last year. I mean,
well, that'll make it 2 points. So no, but in all honesty, Oscar he's won the championship in like every bracket he's been in getting up to F1.
Correct.
He had a year off last year because of the signing times and all that stuff. He had some drama with which team he was going to sign for. Well, he picked McLaren, signed McLaren. And on Pit Stop podcast, he had an interview with 2 of the guys there. And they were talking about like him versus Lando, getting acquainted with each other, becoming friends or enemies or whatever. He said, I'm here to learn. Lando's a veteran, which he is. He's been there for a while. He's got the raw skill, but the car has to get better.
Yes.
Because Lando should be driving for a driver's championship.
And go back to what Patrick said, is that McLaren was one of those teams that got it wrong last year. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that. Big time.
McLaren's a perennial powerhouse. I mean, before I even knew about F1, I did know about McLaren. And they'd won championships for seeming like forever. And they really struggled in the early stages of turbo hybrid, 2014 through like 2018. It was, bad. They lost a lot of sponsors and everything like that. And they started seeming like they were resurging, through 2020 and 2021, they were duking it out for 4th place. And then last year happened and, see you later, they're back at the pack half the races.
I'm interested about the driver changes. There were a whole bunch of swaps. Fernando Alonso, who's been in Formula One for quite some time.
Forever.
He switched from Alpine to Aston Martin Racing. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I do think Fernando will, he's still got it. Everybody knows he's still got it.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of it depends on the car that Aston Martin put together this year. And, he in theory has big shoes to fill, replacing Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion, but they're still getting the same caliber of driver essentially. And so I do think he's going to beat Lance Stroll in the standings this year. But it'll honestly really depend on the car that they give the drivers. Aston Martin, they seem promising, and when they used to be Racing Point a few years ago, they were starting to put stuff together, and then they kind of fell back a little bit when they became Aston Martin. But I'm hoping that they can get a pretty good car together this year.
Yeah, I hope so. Because the better all the cars are, the better the racing is, the better the show is, better Drive to Survive is, all the drama off the track is better. So I think we hope that every team figured it out and has the strategy, has the mechanics, has everything to succeed.
Because Fernando switching to Aston, that was a big switch. There was a ton of drama when Alpine was trying to choose him versus Piastri and, all that stuff that went down. And then, Alpine ended up with nobody because Piastri left and so did Alonso. And now they're actually ending up with Pierre Gasly, who,
really good.
He had been with Red Bull forever, starting at Toro Rosso, went to the Red Bull essentially first team, and it didn't work out, but he went back to AlphaTauri and was still putting in solid racing. So I'm really interested to see how him and Ocon compare at Alpine.
A common thing in Formula One is the livery updates. So every new season, the car gets a new design, a new paint job, wrap job, whatever you want to call it. People call it liveries. So I sent you guys a picture of all the car liveries for 2023. What I want you guys to do is to pick your top 3. Now, it's just based off the car, not the designs or like anything in particular. Just what looks the coolest to you. Give me your 1, 2, and 3 in order. So how about Chandler? You go first.
All right. So I'm going to start with my number 3. Working my way down. Number 3 is the Ferrari. And, the main thing that people always usually will say is that, hey, well, Ferrari, we know it's going to be red, but I love the black accents on the tail fin, having the black 16 on at least in this picture, it'll have a 55 on it. But where they put the black accents at really kind of make it stand out. And a common theme, we saw a lot more black colors this year.
I'll talk about that. Just finish up your damn picks, will you?
Okay. So number 3 was Ferrari.
Okay.
Number 2 was Alfa Romeo. I love the red and black combo on that one too.
That's just Ferrari 2.0.
It's fine, but they came out before Ferrari, even though we knew what Ferrari was going to look like essentially. And then my number 1 is just feed me the Mercedes. This guy, God, I love the black car. I love the all black, like especially that like teal green on the side. You think about these night races at Bahrain, how good that's going to look, especially Singapore, Saudi Arabia at the end of the year, whenever things will be sleek. So those are my top 3.
Okay. So my top 3 is kind of similar. So my number 3 is Ferrari. I love the bird baths on the side of the car. Ferrari red is, it's classic. Mm-hmm. Something else that's honestly, it's kind of stupid, but I love it, is the central air intake above the driver is triangular instead of circular. Makes it look like a shark. I love it. Number 2 is actually going to be Aston Martin for me. I love the racing green. It's honestly, it's a little bit similar to the Mercedes design with the pinstripe going down the side, but that car is just sleek to me. And, while the past performance may not be good, it definitely looks like it can race. And then my number 1 is also Mercedes. It's just menacing. I would not want to see that coming to my rearview mirrors.
Yeah, for sure. My top 3 is number 3. I'm going to have to go with Haas.
Haas, okay.
Yeah, they went white and black with red accents this year, and it looks pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie, I really like Haas.
And it looks good.
The red, take away the MoneyGram logo, it looks damn good.
Yeah, the red wheel covers are they're fire. But so that's my number 3. Number 2's got to be the Alpha. It's pretty sweet. I don't know about the wheel covers are just so cool. It was tough to choose between the Williams or the Alpha, but I think I had to do it. For number
Alpha
1,
Tauri or Alfa Romeo?
Alfa Romeo.
Okay.
And then, Alpha Tauris is not good.
No.
It's like they forgot to add a color, but they did at the last second.
Yeah.
We'll just throw red at this. So whatever. My number 1 is the Bat car. W14. That's it. That car is so nice, man. That Mercedes, it looks so clean. And they, with a livery like that, they have to win.
You can't be fast. You have to be,
especially if they're using black as an excuse to use less paint, they gotta be at the front.
Yeah, so that's a big thing right now. All the teams are using more black because it's not actually black. It's the carbon fiber that's just unpainted to save weight. So it is what it is. We'll see. That was our top picks for the car liveries this year. What about, give me a speed round here. I need each of you to give me your top 3 places for Drivers' Championship and the World Constructors' Championship. Chandler.
Mine's pretty easy. Top 3, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen wins, but all 3 of them are in contention come Saudi Arabia. So it's going to be, finally, we have something to more than 2 people. And then for the World Constructors Championship, I'm going with Red Bull first, Mercedes second, Ferrari takes a drop back to third, just because those other 2 teams, both of their drivers are going to be competing.
Yeah. For my drivers, Max, I think, is just winning it this year. He's just too good. I definitely think Charles is coming in second, and I think Lewis is going to bounce back and finish third. But from a constructor standpoint, definitely think Red Bull is just going to take it home this year. They come in there and, they know how to get stuff done, especially with the current car that they have. Mm-hmm. Then I think Mercedes is going to bounce back. And I do think they're going to be second just for consistency's sake. Yeah. And third is definitely Ferrari. I definitely think they're gonna, do a great job, but with their current strategy issues and things like that, they're not going to finish first or second. They're just not.
Yeah, they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, that's true. I think for my World Drivers' Championship picks, in third is going to be Leclerc. I think he's got it, but with a new team principal this year, I don't know. The strategy's got to be right, and I don't know. For number 2, I'm going to have to go with George Russell.
Okay.
And for number 1, I'm going to go Max again. Max is going to be 3-time world champion. World Constructors Championship. This one's tough. It's easily Red Bull number 1. Number 2 and number 3 is more difficult though. I think Mercedes is going to win second place, but who knows? It could be anyone. But third place is definitely Ferrari. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. This should be a great season. Yeah. I hope all the gaps have closed up because
I think we're at the very least we're back to 2020, where it's kind of you had the best of the rest. We're like the competition for the best of the rest. Like you're going to have Red Bull and Mercedes, who I think they have a more complete team. Even if I
just hope Sky Sports shows the battles behind the top 3 drivers.
Yeah, that's right.
If they do that, then it's fine. We're golden, good to go. We don't have to wait till Drive to Survive to see a on-track battle that was great that we didn't even get to see because they were showing replays during live racing. You know what I mean? Hopefully that all that's good to go. I'm excited for this season. It should be a great one.
I am too. We're looking forward to getting into a deep dive with all of it and seeing how preseason testing comes out this week.
Yeah. And Drive to Survive.
And Drive to Survive. Yeah. Might have to do a little segment of recapping some of that.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, this is figuring out the formula. New episodes will be available on Tuesdays or Wednesdays following a race weekend. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, share with your friends, family, your neighbors, whoever. Get them into Formula One because it's a great sport.